In this lesson, we will discuss the use of reflexive verbs in Italian. You already know and use one reflexive verb without thinking about it, the verb chiamarsi. When you state your name, mi chiamo Raven, or ask someone their name, come ti chiami, you are using the reflexive verb chiamarsi. Remember that the verb chiamarsi literally translates as to call oneself. In the cartoon, the woman asks, come ti chiami? What is your name? Or, literally, what do you call yourself? Notice that the verb chiamarsi is conjugated in the tu form, chiami, and the pronoun ti also corresponds to tu. The verb and the pronoun reflect each other in that they both correspond to the same person. In other words, the subject and object are the same. The subject, you, tu, is also the object, yourself, ti. Ti chiami. You call yourself. The same can be said for the other examples in the cartoon. Mi chiamo Angela. Mi corresponds to io, and chiamo is the io form of the verb chiamare. Mi chiamo. I call myself. You can think of it like a mirror. The reflexive pronoun that corresponds to io reflects the subject, io, that goes with chiamo. In the third cartoon, come si chiama, the woman is asking what this man's name is. Si is the third person reflexive pronoun, and chiama is conjugated in the third person, the lui lei form. So again, si and chiama reflect each other and that they are both in the third person and refer to the same subject. How does he call himself? And finally, come vi chiamate? The man asks, what do you call yourselves? Or what are your names? The vi is the voi form, the voi reflexive pronoun, and chiamate is the verb chiamare conjugated in the voi form. And the one responds, ci chiamiamo Angela. We call ourselves Angela. Ci, the noi form, noi reflexive pronoun, and chiamiamo, the conjugated noi form of the verb chiamare. Remember that in previous lessons you learned how to use other types of pronouns, direct object pronouns and indirect object pronouns. Verbs that are generally reflexive can also function as non-reflexive verbs when they are used with direct or indirect object pronouns instead of reflexive pronouns. In these cases, the action of the verb is applied to someone or something else. For example, instead of calling oneself, you could also call someone else. At this point, the subject and object no longer reflect each other. They are no longer the same, no longer reflexive. Let's look at some examples. Mi chiamo Lucia. I call myself Lucia, or my name is Lucia. Mi is the io pronoun, first person singular pronoun. Chiamo is the io form of the verb chiamare. The two reflect each other. Mio fratello si chiama Davide. Si is the third person reflexive pronoun. Chiama is conjugated in the third person. This is a reflexive verb, chiamarsi. But here we have lo chiamo ogni domenica. I call him every Sunday. Here we have I call, chiamo, it's in the io form, the first person. Lo is the direct object pronoun referring to he or Davide. I call him. So here the verb and the pronoun do not reflect. So the verb is chiamare, not chiamarsi. Se non lo chiamo io, lui mi chiama. If I don't call him, he calls me. So here we have a non-reflexive pronoun again. We have me, he's calling me. Chiama is he calls. They do not reflect. Non-reflexive use of the verb chiamare. Now let's take a look at a list of common reflexive verbs. Notice that the infinitive form contains the pronoun si, and the final e of the non-reflexive form of the verb has dropped. The final e has dropped from chiamare, creating chiamar, and then the reflexive pronoun si has been added to form chiamarsi. Let's look at an example with the verb alzare. So if you are to get someone up, you would use the verb alzare. But when you get yourself up, you use the reflexive alzarsi. So the E from alzare has dropped, and we've added the C. So all of these reflexive verbs, the E has dropped and a C has been added on. The verb is not conjugated, it's still in its infinitive form, but reflexive verbs in the infinitive include the reflexive pronoun si. Let's read through the list. Chiamarsi, alzarsi, vestirsi, mettersi, annoiarsi, fermarsi, addormentarsi, innamorarsi, scusarsi, svegliarsi, lavarsi, prepararsi, divertirsi, sentirsi, riposarsi, arrabbiarsi, sposarsi, laurearsi. As you'll notice, many of the verbs on this list have to do with getting ready for your day. Getting up, waking up, getting dressed, getting washed up, etc. And you also have some verbs in this list that have to do with emotions. Sentirsi, divertirsi, innamorarsi, arrabbiarsi. Not all getting ready verbs or emotion verbs are reflexive, but you will notice that many are, and that's one way to help remember them in your mind. Finally, let's have a look at how reflexive verbs are used in the infinitive. For example, when a reflexive infinitive verb follows a conjugated verb. Usually, when you have two verbs back to back in Italian, the second verb stays in the infinitive. This is also true of reflexive verbs, but while the verb itself remains in the infinitive, the attached reflexive pronoun has to change. Let's see how it works. In the first example, non voglio svegliarmi. I do not want to wake up. So we have the two verbs in a row, voglio, I want, and to wake up. Like in English, I don't want to wake up. To wake up is the equivalent of an infinitive in English. But you'll see that while the verb svegliar is in the infinitive, the si has changed to me because I'm referring to myself. If this were he, you could say non vuole svegliarsi. If it was you, non vuoi, the two form of volere, non vuoi svegliarti. And another example, mia mamma dice, devi alzarti. So my mom is saying, you should get up. Again, we have devi, the conjugated form of the verb dovere, and we have alzarti, to get up. But the si has changed to ti because it's you. You should get up. If this was I should get up, devo alzarmi. If it was we should get up, dobbiamo alzarci. So the reflexive pronoun changes according to the subject. I hope this presentation has been useful in getting to know the use of reflexive verbs in Italian. Ciao!